Join me as I dive into the new Corporate Transparency Act changes and try to navigate these complex rules in real time. The Corporate Transparency Act is a groundbreaking piece of legislation that aims to promote transparency in corporate ownership and operations. This act is a significant step forward in the fight against corruption, money laundering, and other illegal activities that have long plagued the corporate world. For far too long, corporate structures have been shrouded in secrecy, making it easy for bad actors to exploit these loopholes for their own gain. The lack of transparency has facilitated illegal activities like money laundering and tax evasion, allowing criminals to hide their illicit funds and avoid paying their fair share of taxes. This lack of transparency has also made it difficult for law enforcement to track down and prosecute those engaged in illegal activities. The complexity of corporate structures has made it a challenge to identify the true beneficiaries of shell companies and other opaque entities. The opacity of corporate structures has also enabled corrupt practices like bribery and embezzlement, undermining trust in the corporate world and perpetuating a culture of corruption. The lack of transparency has also made it difficult for investors to make informed decisions, as they are often in the dark about the true ownership and operations of the companies they invest in. Furthermore, this lack of transparency has compromised the integrity of our financial systems, putting the entire economy at risk. The Corporate Transparency Act seeks to address these issues by shedding light on corporate ownership and operations. The Act requires companies to disclose their beneficial owners, which will help to prevent the misuse of shell companies and other opaque entities. This increased transparency will also make it easier for law enforcement to track down and prosecute those engaged in illegal activities. The Corporate Transparency Act affects all corporations, limited liability companies, and other entities that are formed in or registered to do business in the United States. These entities will be required to file reports with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which will maintain a database of beneficial ownership information. The compliance requirements are quite stringent, with companies facing stiff penalties for noncompliance. The deadlines for compliance are also quite short, with companies having just a few months to get their affairs in order. One of the most significant changes brought about by the Corporate Transparency Act is the requirement for companies to disclose their beneficial owners. This means that companies will no longer be able to hide behind complex structures and shell companies. The Act also requires companies to report changes in ownership within a short period, ensuring that the information in the database remains accurate and up to date. The compliance requirements are quite onerous, with companies facing stiff penalties for noncompliance. The urgency and importance of these new regulations cannot be overstated. According to the Treasury Department, the Corporate Transparency Act will help to prevent the laundering of over $300 billion in illicit funds each year. This is a staggering figure that highlights the significance of this legislation. By promoting transparency in corporate ownership and operations, the Corporate Transparency Act will help to prevent corruption, money laundering, and other illegal activities. The most impactful change brought about by the Corporate Transparency Act is the requirement for companies to disclose their beneficial owners. This will help to prevent the misuse of shell companies and other opaque entities, making it easier to track down and prosecute those engaged in illegal activities. The Act will also make it easier for investors to make informed decisions, as they will have access to information about the true ownership and operations of the companies they invest in. In conclusion, the Corporate Transparency Act is a far-reaching piece of legislation that seeks to promote transparency in corporate ownership and operations. The Act requires companies to disclose their beneficial owners, making it easier to prevent corruption, money laundering, and other illegal activities. The compliance requirements are stringent, and the deadlines are short, but the benefits of this legislation far outweigh the costs. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in learning more about the Corporate Transparency Act and its implications, be sure to check out my other videos on related topics.